Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be having another star from A Christmas Story. Can you guess who? Miss Shields herself, Tedde Moore. Yes, Tedde Moore is going to be on the podcast today, and I'm so friggin' excited because she was a really great character in the movie, and she's a very pretty lady, of course, as you all know, and going to have her on the show today, talk about that, talk about a couple other roles, just find out about her and stuff, and the impact that this movie has had on her life, what have you. And it's going to be pretty friggin' sweet, I think. So yeah, here is my interview with Tedde Moore. Hey, Tedde.
Hey,
How,
that was funny.
how are you?
I forget. I'm okay. I forget when you're out in California. You forget about the rest of the world. It's like,
That's
what,
okay.
there's more world? There's more world in California? Because, when you're there isn't. I don't find anyway. When I'm there, it's just all about California.
Yeah.
I love it. Whereabouts in California do you live?
I'm living in Redding right now.
Redding. Where's that?
It's just a couple hours away from Sacramento and a couple hours and about 4 hours away from the Bay Area.
Oh, that's quite a beautiful part of the country, isn't it?
It is, but I'm not. I've been here for a year now. I'm originally from San Francisco, and it's just way different than San Francisco.
Well, crikey, there's nothing on earth like San Francisco.
Uh,
Everything is going to be different than San Francisco.
yeah, it's a lot different now though, but it was better.
Well, everything is changing so fast in our life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's the extraordinary thing about this film, is that because it captured a moment in time when everything was all right, or at least except the racism part.
Right.
Part. But everything else was all right. I'm absolutely sure that's why it's so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Has remained popular.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a way, it's like the Wizard of Oz, which promises you that if you know that amazing thing it says at the end, if you haven't found your happiness in your own backyard, you haven't lost it in the first place.
Right.
And that message is so profound because so many people never leave their own backyard and crave to go to Oz and have all these adventures and everything. And it all adds up to nothing in the end, really, which is what you know when by the time you get admired. So anyway, do you want to start this interview or
Yeah.
are you on already? Or how long is this meant to be so I can...
A good 40 minutes would be great.
40? Oh, God, okay. 40 minutes of you talking. Wow. Hope you have some good questions.
Oh yes. So yeah, it's such an honor because I had a crush on you as Miss Shields when I was a kid, and
You did, eh?
yeah, I thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, listen, it's entirely my pleasure. This is the being part of this project has turned out to be pretty much the honor of my lifetime.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, are you easily offended?
No.
Awesome, awesome. Occasionally, I drop an F-bomb on the show.
Oh, well then we'll compete, shall we?
Awesome, yes.
I really try not to use the F-bomb word because I really try not to. I have 8 grandchildren and life has become so religious about words.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in England. I also favor the C word as well, but I will promise you I won't use that.
Every time I have Lynn Griffin on the podcast, we swear the entire way through.
Darling Lynn, isn't she wonderful?
Love her. Yes, I sent her a Christmas card a few days ago. Um, did you know early on that you wanted to be an actress?
Yes.
Did you do plays in school and community theater and all that?
No. My family in Toronto is kind of like a royal family of theatre. My grandmother was the person who started Indigenous, so to speak, Canadian theatre or original Canadian theatre.
hmm
And she had her own little theatre company that was named the Theatre Awards. Were named after my grandmother, Dora Maven Moore. My father was instrumental in the country in the arts. He started the television department of the CBC, or broadcasting company. He wrote musicals. He discovered Robert Goulet. He,
Hmm.
and gave him many leading roles, I may say, when I was a child, speaking of being in love. And, yeah, so no, it was, I learned to walk, walking up and down the theater aisle, holding on to the handles of the chairs.
Nice.
So, the arms of the chairs. So, I mean, the point is that there never was any doubt in my mind. And I'm sorry about that, because I think I would have made a much better director. But in the end, I was a fussy actor.
hmm Well,
I was getting fussy about who my directors were.
well, you did a good job with the acting, and I mean, you could have done both, but it is what it is. But so you're from Toronto, but you were raised in England.
No, I'm from Toronto, but I went to school in England. I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art for 3 years,
hmm
between the ages of 17 and 20.
Uh huh.
17 and a half and 20 and a half. And those are formative years when it comes to the F word.
So that
Over there.
okay, I get it now. So that was your training, you're saying.
That was my training, yes.
hmm And after you finished, did you get an agent right away?
Yes, I had an agent in England, which I foolishly left and came back to Canada because I'd fallen madly in love with a Canadian man who was at the time an artist, and then he decided he wanted to be an actor.
hmm
And I came home, and he was still studying in Montreal. And I came home, and I was in Montreal, and I got a call from Stratford that I wanted to come and audition because an actress had dropped out at the season. And so I trundled myself over to the Stratford Festival and did my audition and was hired on the spot, and I was at Stratford for 3 years after that.
Do you consider yourself a British than Canadian?
Well, let's put it this way, my influence has been largely British. At that point, was largely British, and as growing up, I was very interested. Well, I was present at the opening night of Camelot in Toronto, which is a one-time only performance. It lasted 5 hours. And no one ever saw that show again because obviously it was cut. But I was there because of Bob Goulet, and my parents took me. And that's when I met Richard Burton. And when I first saw Richard Burton, and when I met Richard Burton, I was 13. So that was sort of the end of me. Up till then, my great acting influence had been Christopher Plummer.
Oh yes.
Who was the big star at the Stratford Festival. And he was an enormous influence on me in my whole life, actually. But the minute Burton pulled in sight, then I suddenly discovered British actors in a huge way, and the DA and all those people.
Oh, that's
And I started, and it was around that time that a lot of these old films started being shown on television. Because don't forget, TV only started when I was 6.
right.
So there, it was slow to get its program. So it wasn't until I was about 12 or so that they started showing all the old films late at night.
Yeah. One of your earliest movies was Second Wind, which I watched last night on YouTube.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
There's an interesting story about that.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
The producers of that movie, there was a fine cut, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the music had been put in, I don't know, but they were holding this screening for the people involved in the producers and the distributors and the people involved in the film.
Right.
And somebody said, would you mind if so-and-so from LA came? And Don Shabib, the director, said, no, not at all. So so-and-so from LA came, got on a plane, flew back, took a meeting with Michael Douglas and said, so that's your next project. So Running, the Michael Douglas film, was a rip-off of Second Wind. Straight, direct, almost scene for scene, practically. And Don, who was an independent Canadian director, went to his lawyer, and his lawyer said, well, alas, whoever made the film, Warner Brothers or whatever, their pockets are deeper than yours, and you lose. You lose now. You lose before you begin. So there was he couldn't bring suit. Did you have nobody?
Wow.
How about that? I know.
Yeah.
One right underneath his nose. And I'll tell you something else. A same thing happened to my father.
Mm-hmm.
My father had written a musical based on the book Candide. And it was a wonderful musical. It was for Bob. He wrote it for Bob. Gray.
Right.
And it was tremendous. I loved it. I still love it. And my grandmother was instrumental in getting an English director named Tyrone Guthrie to come and start the Stratford Festival. And hence, my father had met him and knew him and one thing and another. And Guthrie was in Toronto and had dinner at my grandmother's or whatever, and my dad was there, and he said to my dad, so what are you doing? And my dad said, oh, I just finished writing a musical based on Candide. And Guthrie said, what a good idea. And he got on a plane, went to New York, went to dinner, or went to a party where Leonard Bernstein was, and Guthrie said, so what are you doing? And Leonard said, oh, God, I have nothing to do. I didn't know what to do. And Guthrie said, oh, why don't you write a musical based on Candide? And he did. And he called it Candide. So my daddy's musical never saw the light of day.
Oh, wow.
It's quite the business, really, when it comes down to all that stuff. And that was all those years ago. Okay, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I miss these kind of movies about ordinary people who find themselves in a way that they didn't before, and they win in the end, because I think the 70s really broke the barriers for those kind of melodramas, because, back in the 40s, in the 30s, you had all these movies that were melodramas that took place in like the 1800s South, or if it took place in the modern day, it was like the South or New York, and it talked about romance and betrayal. But then the 70s really brought stories like this to the forefront, that it didn't have to be all about that stuff in that context.
Yes, quite. It really, to have watched cinema in the last century, to its thing, from where it started, has been an enormous privilege. I feel very privileged that I lived at that time, that I was working at that time, that I was part of all the changes and wonderful things that were going on. It was a very rich period. And don't forget, there was no social media.
Right.
So there wasn't a sense, there was not a sense that anyone could do it. There was only a sense that those people who were really good at it were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very different creative environment. And I make no comment on which is better. I just say that personally for me, I found it was very stimulating to be part of all the changes that went on. And I mean, there was that period of Hollywood movies that was so awful, the 50s and the early 60s. I mean, oh my God, it was simply dreadful.
Yeah.
Some and then something happened, Peter Bogdanovich or whatever, and boom, we were off onto another adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are so pretty in this movie. I mean, you were in A Christmas Story too, but in this movie, I mean, you had it going on, and your sexual innuendos that you make in your first scene are just great. Do you want to give me a hand? You're gonna have to get underneath it, and you got that mischievous smirk on your face, which I always do when after I do the punchline to a joke. I always have a smirk like that on my face.
It's funny, I had reason to see parts of that film recently, and I thought to myself, it's kind of dated in a way with all of that stuff. But the one good thing was that she was such a strong character. That's what I liked about her. She wasn't just weak,
Yeah.
She was a strong gal. And I appreciated that. I thought both female characters in that film were very well written.
Well, yeah, I mean that's your MO. You play a lot of strong characters, and yeah, and I also noticed you have very tiny feet.
Oh, my feet. I do have very nice feet, actually.
Yes, you do.
Feet are a thing.
They're a what?
A thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
not everybody can say that, but I have very nice feet.
yes, they're very cute too.
Thank you.
Yes. And James Naughton, he was coming off of The Paper Chase and the Planet of the Apes series. And, of course, his brother is David Naughton. I met him a couple of years ago. Great guy. Was he great to work with, James?
Absolutely sensational. They both were wonderful. I learned a great deal from both of them. Jim was a tremendous person, human being.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. The best of what I would call an American morality at the time that I dearly loved and do love. I love my friends from that period. He was absolutely generous. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind and absolutely terrific at his job. Simply terrific. So professional.
Uh-huh.
It was thrilling. It was thrilling to work. It's always thrilling to work with very professional people, and she was very professional as well.
Yeah.
But Jim was really a special person.
Lindsay Wagner.
He wasn't an actor, He wasn't a.
Yeah.
There was zero bullshit with the guy. Zero.
Nice.
He was a serious, creative person who wanted to be in the arts working.
And Lindsay Wagner, I think she was just about to do The Bionic Woman by that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She was a very, very nice, very, very, very nice, very good person, very nice one. And I always thought, I always expected her to have a sort of a different type of career. I think she may have expected it herself. But we never know what the hell is going to happen to us.
Nope.
Or whether things are going to go our way, or whether we're in or out of the time, Jim went on, of course, to do most of his work on Broadway, I believe, and in the theater. For some reason, his look didn't hang on at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, cinematically, it's all just to do with happenstance, And he's doing, like right now, it strikes me that all the leading actors in film are the ugliest group of men I've ever seen, with few exceptions. They all look like sheriffs.
Yeah.
They've all got lousy hair. There's nothing to me appealing about any of these Ryan guys or any of these people. Like they're just, and there's one after the other. I can't tell them apart. They're all the same.
Yeah.
And lacking in what I consider to be heat, sexiness,
Right.
So it's just a period of time when these windy sort of looking guys are everyone's talking about how hot this person is, not how that person is, like, oh, No.
Yeah, I so agree with
But
you.
it's all timing. It's absolutely all timing. You know, it's like that time when the actresses, the whole hair thing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these women have this amazing hair, and this is actually before hair extensions. So this amazing hair was their actual amazing hair. So this is what made them amazing, was their amazing hair.
Right.
And it's very interesting that their acting ability, and I'm thinking of the gal from Friends, who actually is really quite a very good actress, but she never got the chance once the hair thing went away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and there's nothing you can sort of do about that. And so all the projects she was offered and all the stuff she tried to generate herself, and nothing ever clicked for her, I don't believe. I mean, not that I have seen all this stuff here. And it is curious that we have so little control over it. It's not even our gifts or our talents or our looks or whatever. It's you know, what's happening at the moment. Does it include you or not?
Mm-hmm.
It's very capricious, this business. Now, it didn't used to be when the studios were running it, because they made all the decisions of who was going to be hot and who wasn't, you know?
Yeah. I totally agree with you, though. It's just not the way it used to be. And also, the availability of movies is not the way it used to be, but don't get me started on that.
The availability, sorry, I am. The availability in what way?
Because independent films are now being streamed. They have to go through the festival circuit in order for them to pick up distribution now, and they're lucky if they do. Just people are making all these movies and they're not getting seen now.
Which seems to be the most biggest, here it comes, fucking irony, because now we've got this almost free way of distributing this stuff.
Yeah.
So do you know who my son is?
Who?
My son. No.
No.
Do you know an artist by the name of Drake? Musical artist?
No.
Okay, well, never mind, that does not. But, okay, well, I will tell the story. Drake is actually outsold the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
He's the highest selling artist, popular artist at the moment. He and Beyonce sort of fencing on the top there. My son is his producer. And when they made their first album here in Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
my son put it out on the web for free. Now,
Right.
me, who has been brought up my entire life, you do nothing until you've signed a contract. When everything is signed, sealed, and you're protected, right?
Right.
I would go to bed sick at my stomach. I would say to him, what the fuck are you doing, for heaven's sake? It's all going to be stolen. Yeah. He said, Mother, you know nothing about it. Listen, the world's changed. This is what we're doing, and there's lots more where that came from.
Right.
Oh, no, I didn't know anything about it, because here's what happened. Because the album was free, in a few months they had 2.5 million fans. That fall, they won a Grammy, and it was the first time in the history of the Grammys that a non-represented, non-published, non-commercial person had won a Grammy. And when it was all over, the agents and representatives and record companies were all saying, so you represent them, and everybody said, no. And it took a couple of weeks for it to sink in that they were not represented.
Mm-hmm.
So when they went to New York to take the meetings with, Warner Brothers and all these people who were, there's $1 billion on the table, $2 million on the table, $3 million on the table, whatever all that shit was going on.
Yeah.
And Norton was taking his meetings. And when he came home, I said, so what kind of people were there? Like, I'm curious to know who's at the top now in the music world. Were they all old guys? Were they all young guys? What was it? He said, no, it was a mixture. They were old guys, white hairs. And there was a couple of middle ranking and a ton of, young Turks. He said that's pretty much made up the group.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'll tell you a funny story about the white hairs. And I said, oh, yeah, charming. Let's hear it, because I've got my hair now.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, we took a couple of meetings, and I would look over and they'd be shaking their heads. And the third meeting of that, I happened to be sitting beside one. And I said to him, "Excuse me, sir, I hope you don't mind my asking, but why are you shaking your head?" And the man said, "Because, no, you don't know how the fuck you did this." And the fact is that the world is so different now. And that's what I don't understand about the movie distribution, because my son distributed this movie absolutely free and ended up at the top of the mountain. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see why it's not possible to put the films out. I don't know why there aren't film platforms. I don't know why it's not possible to I don't understand enough about it, but it seems to me that it should be better for watching films, not worse.
Yeah. I mean, the content is good, but it's just a lot of people, don't get to see it because there's so much movies and so much content out there now, but hopefully someday everything will come to a head. The first time you worked with Bob Clark was on Murder by, how do you pronounce it, Decree? Decree, yes. And you got to be in a movie with legends, Donald Sutherland, Christopher Plummer, James Mason, Anthony Qualley, John Gielgud. What was that like?
It was like a complete dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I looked around the room. At one point, I was in the room with Donald Sutherland, James Mason, Christopher Plummer, David Hemmings, and I thought, am I actually, is this real? It was a fantastic experience. I loved it. Though, the British guys didn't get Bob. They didn't think he knew what he was doing. And they were so wrong. They made it that they were a bit cheeky with him. They weren't helpful sometimes. The crew. But I thought the movie, I liked the movie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I don't like, the only thing, in fact, the only thing I don't like about the movie is Christopher Plummer's puffy hair. I don't know why that gets up my nose, but it's coiffed,
Yeah.
And I just don't see that character as having puffy hair.
Yeah.
I guess it was the beginning of when it started to thin out, and he was getting nervous about that. I don't know, what the hell, actor stuff.
Yeah. I would have been intimidated as fuck to be on the set with them. But I do think that Donald Sutherland, he captured the essence of Sherlock Holmes in his Donald Sutherland-like way.
Well, Plummer played Holmes.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Christopher Plummer,
No,
I mean.
Yeah, Donald Sutherland played some other character, which I've been forgotten. Somebody that Holmes goes to try and help find that guy, right?
You're right.
Help them solve the case.
I saw the movie once years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you what was a really freaking privilege was off the set. Like, it was great on the set. Yes, that was amazing. That was wonderful. But everybody's doing their job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but off the set was amazing. I mean, lunching with Christopher Plummer and Donald Sutherland was something else, because here are two extraordinarily brilliant men.
Yeah.
Really extraordinarily, unusually intelligent men. And the conversation was just unbelievable. Like, I didn't say a thing. I just sat there listening to this stuff, thinking this is just unreal. These conversations could last me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
and then James Mason invited me to tea inside his trailer.
Uh-huh.
And there was a linen tablecloth and silver tea set and a butlery sort of person serving us tea. That was pretty freaking wonderful.
Nice.
So, yeah, although I had met him years ago when I was a child, because he came to Stratford.
Mm-hmm.
And I played with his then little girl, whose name I've forgotten now. Anyway, yes. But anyhow, yes, that was really a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I was treated like a movie star. That's the other thing that hardly ever happens in Canada.
Yeah.
is that you're doing a great role in a great film, and you're at home and getting picked up at 4 o'clock in the morning and driven for hours and all that crap. It's it was just wonderful to be in this gorgeous hotel with extraordinary linen and this looking out the window at Green Park and just great. For somebody who'd gone to school there, it was like really, it was fabulous. I just had the best time. But Bob Clark always looked after his actors in the
Yes.
most amazing way. Like if you ever work with him, you'd cross burning bridges to work with him again. He's just that kind of person.
I've interviewed so many actors that worked with him, and they all tell me he was a friend and a mentor. He was more like a friend and a mentor than a director, and they just have lovely things to say about him.
He was an extraordinary human being.
Mm-hmm. Did he call you up and ask you to play Miss Shields?
Yeah, he actually bumped into my then husband, Don Shabib, and said, I have a part for Teddy. And Don said, oh, no you don't. And Bob said, oh, yes I do. And Don said, well, she's 7 months pregnant.
Huh.
And really? And so Bob said, yes, I want her. That's it. That's the end of it. I want her in this movie. So I went to meet with him, hugely pregnant, and we chatted, and he said, are you willing to do work in this condition? I said, oh, absolutely. I was just about me. And I said, but you can't have a pregnant teacher in 1938. That married women weren't allowed to teach in 1938.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, well, don't worry, we'll put you behind a desk. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to be in my first big American film sitting behind that desk. So I went home and I put my theater hat on and I realized that in fact my grandmother and all those women from that period had this strange shape where they were all sort of kind of fat. Their boobs were sort of hanging down and it was all kind of a oneness. And I realized it would be possible to pad me out to look like I look like that, which is what a lot of women look like in those days.
Mm-hmm.
They had different undergarments and everything. So that's what we did. So I was 8 months pregnant when I shot that.
Wow. And then that's where my crush on you happened. You reminded me so much of my special ed teacher in elementary school, except she had blonde hair, but like your facial features and your cheekbones reminded me of her so much.
Aren't you lucky you had a teacher you remember? That's the best, isn't it?
Oh, of course. I love how Ralphie stares at you stares at you in such a creepy manner to attempt to get an A. And like he winks at you a couple times, which is what I would have done.
Oh, what a terrific actor that kid was. Oh, my goodness, he was an amazing actor.
Peter Billingsley.
There's a wonderful line from Catherine Hepburn, which goes like this: if film acting was so difficult, how come dogs and children can do it so well?
Yeah, I agree.
And the dogs part is the hilarious part, because the fact of the matter is that the camera's doing almost everything. All you have to do is kind of be there. And I just thought he was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great guy, too. All the people on the movies that I worked with Bob, all three of them, all turned up. Even Sutherland, who's a real crazy old guy, warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost impossible to be grumpy or stupid around Bob, It was just so wonderful.
Yeah, yesterday I talked to Scott Schwartz for 2 hours. He's an amazing and interesting guy. He's got a better head on his shoulder than most child actors I've seen. And yeah, he told me Peter Billingsley's still in the business, and I wasn't even aware of that.
Oh, yeah, he's Vince Vaughn's partner, I think. He produces Vince Vaughn's movies.
Yeah. I just been out of the
But
loop.
yes,
I didn't
Scott,
know.
he's a tremendous, he's a great, Scott and I are very good friends, and we couldn't possibly be farther apart politically, but that doesn't matter to me because I just think he's terrific. I love him.
Yes, we're on the same side, Teddy. We talked politics just by accident towards the end yesterday, and I didn't agree with him on anything though, but it was very interesting listening to him, talk and stuff. Um, that fantasy sequence of you giving him an A+, you're like something out of My Fair Lady in that scene.
Oh, thank you. There was another scene. There was another scene that I did in as that character when I went to go to Ralphie's house, and Ralphie imagining that I'd come to his house to tell his parents what an extraordinary student he is.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful, wonderful scene. And oh my golly, acting with Darren McGavin was a complete gift. I had a huge crush on him when he was a TV star and I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that was just so wonderful. But they cut that. They cut a lot, from the film. And when the director's cut came out, and when it was it 20 years? I can't remember. A DVD, or I guess, I don't know if it was 20 years, but whatever it was, the DVD thing had happened, and they did the director, they did the whole big hoo-ha, hoo-ha, and I thought, oh,
yeah.
Get the old stuff, they get put back in. Well, they lost it. No one knew where it was. It was gone. And they spent months trying to find it.
Wow.
Those bits of the film that had been cut because was it Warner Brothers? I think it was Warner Brothers had no idea.
Yeah.
Had none.
Because MGM made it.
MGM had no idea. Right? Just no idea at all. And anyway, so they were gone. René DeVos, the producer, I phoned him. I said, "What is going? Where is it?" He asked the funny. He said, "My darling, you've been trying for months."
Wow.
So, because you see, in the old days of film,
mm-hmm.
they used to use anything that was lying around the cutting room as runners, into scenes, and just, they hack up film all the time. They didn't care. They were sitting there, they'd hack it up, And that's the only thing that Renee thought could possibly have happened to us. And in those days, there weren't copies. That's the other thing you need to understand. It wasn't like there was a DVD somewhere of it, the real thing.
Right.
It was on this piece of film, the end. There was no copy of the film while you were editing it. It was a completely different world.
Yep.
But the stuff was lost, which was a great tragedy, because there was a great Flash Gordon sequence that was tremendously funny.
Yeah.
And that was cut.
There are times when I have a fantasy where where after I auditioned for something or submitted something, I have this fantasy where the producer or somebody starts quoting with amazement what I said or what I wrote, and they're like, "Tommy Kovac gets the job," and then suddenly it doesn't happen.
Well, how could we manage if we weren't able to do that? We couldn't, really, could we?
No.
One has to envision what it is that's going to happen, and sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't. How old are you, Tommy?
35.
And how long have you been acting?
I started officially in high school, but I've been acting since I was 3 years old when I used to dress up as my favorite movie stars around the house when I was a kid.
So you always knew what it was you wanted to do.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
anything good happen, big happen for you yet?
No, I mean, I got to be in one movie last year, and I was interviewed for a documentary last year as well, and hopefully I'm going to get this one movie I just auditioned for. And I've been doing stand-up comedy since 2006, and that's my other focus as well.
Well, 35 is a good age to begin to start hooking into things. there's lots of younger actors who make it when they're surprisingly young, and lots who don't actually begin to hook things up until they're about your age. So there's tons of time left for you to work out the way you want it to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you just astounded at the impact this movie has had? I mean, that 24-hour TNT marathon is just fucking insane every year.
Yes, very moved by it actually, because for a long time Scotty and I did these events where the fans would come, and I had to stop doing it because it's extremely tiring, and there was health reasons why I couldn't carry on with it. I retired eventually, but what was so extraordinarily moving was the nature of the fans. Now, I have pals in all sorts of things that have conventions,
Yeah.
and where people dress up as their favorite characters and arrive and talk Klingon or whatever and blah, 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 and all this stuff goes on. And then there are the horror ones, which, Lynn knows about a lot, and because of her Black Christmas thing. And what was amazing about the ones that have to do with the Christmas story is they were all family people. They were all kind, loving, interesting, generous people. Lots of teachers would come and tell me that I'd inspired them to become teachers. Lots of really caring individuals. People would drive. This would take place in Cleveland. And people would drive from Texas. It was extraordinary. And it was very moving to realize that we had entered the zeitgeist of people's life.
Yeah.
Their Thanksgiving and Christmas life. And it is a responsibility which I've always taken quite seriously when I'm in the States. It's not quite as big a thing here in Canada as it is down there.
Yeah.
But I'm honored to be part of it. And of course it was a surprise, although it wasn't a surprise to me that it was to some of the other actors. Some of the other actors thought, what is this? God almighty, but you see, I already worked with Bob, so I know it's the same thing. He was so unprepossessing. He was just such a gentle man that you couldn't imagine that he was pulling this off. But he was, and I knew that he was, so I wasn't surprised it was good. Am I surprised at the fact that it's a cult film? No more surprised than I am than anything is a cult film. I mean, it's not interesting. Look at that. It caught fire,
Yeah, I mean, it's a Wonderful Life, and it's not White Christmas. So it's so funny that they're playing it 24 hours on Christmas every year. It's just it's insane, but I love it though.
Well, the thing is that I've watched it. I don't know, in the end of 10 or 12 times, I guess, in my life. But all the fans know all the lines because it's on all the time. It's subliminally in their brains. I lived in fear. People saying, say that line, whatever, and I go, oh my God, that line is not.
Can I tell you this X-rated fantasy I used to have about Miss Shields?
Sure, why not? That's hilarious.
Okay, she asks me to stay after class, and then I say, hey, Miss Shields, I have an outie belly button. You want to see it? And I show it to her. And I'm a little embarrassed to say the rest, but I'll tell you the punchline to it. She says, if you don't have an orgasm, you get an F.
Boy, you chaps are something else.
Okay, I'll admit it. She gave me a blowjob.
Goodness gracious me. Although I actually was quite good at that.
You are?
I was.
You was? You was.
I was. I don't do that kind of thing anymore. That's entirely for the younger ladies to participate in.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Not interested in servicing any longer. The service station is closed.
Well, I do think though that Miss Shields was probably sexually repressed.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that. I arrived on the set, using her entire look, the finger waves, the dresses, everything. We'd all worked it out, the whole look. My grade 3 teacher, Miss Clark, who was an absolute bitch. She was a battle axe.
Yeah.
And so I arrived on the first day of shooting and was playing my battle axe teacher. And Bob came to the front saying, no. And I said, what do you mean no? And he said no. I wanted to be the sweetest thing that ever lived. I said, oh my God. You tell me this now. He said, yes, well, somebody has to tell you. No, you're to be the sweetest person ever. So right on that moment, I had to change my entire character. Was she sexually repressed? I think all teachers and female teachers at that time were probably having a difficult time with it. Because their jobs were on the line. They couldn't have any relationships.
Yeah.
They were sisters at that time.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stories my parents told me about teachers they had. They were just so mean. They were hitting kids with knuckles with the ruler and stuff. And like I didn't get that when I was in school.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, probably by the time you came along, that kind of stuff had worked. Well, anyway, by then married ladies were able to teach and this, that, and the next thing. So that wasn't pregnant people and stuff. So that was no longer a thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, all that repression does not lead to very happy individuals. They make all sorts of bad choices, like the Catholic priests and things like that.
Yep. I wanted to ask you really quick. You did 2 episodes of the Friday the 13th series. Yes. You did one with these vampire bees, and Art Hindle was in that episode. And I interviewed him recently. What was it like being on that show?
It was a load of fun. We had a very good time. It was a very nice shoot. It was fun, and we enjoyed ourselves. The other one, the Friday the 13th, wasn't that about the nurses?
Yeah, the statue at the
Coven of Nurses. That's a great story about that.
Yeah, the fertility clinic.
The Coven of Nurses. So we were, all these ladies were all dressed up in these hoods and everything, and we were coming down to this tree that is the babies or something. I can't remember what the story was exactly.
Right.
And all these nurses had become their witch coven people, and we were all to dance around the tree. And the director had said to us, now I want this to be a kind of orgasmic dance around the tree. I want it to be very, very, very orgasmic is the word he said over and over. Do you understand? And we said yes. Because in those days you couldn't shoot things that many times. You know, you had to try and get it rehearsed at any moment. So then we did it, and then we rehearsed it one of them. We said, no, more orgasmic. Or really out there. And so we shot one, and the thing was over. And he said, well, that wasn't orgasmic. That wasn't orgasmic in the least. And I said to him, well, we are Canadians. It was a Canadian orgasm. And the whole set fell over. It was really hilarious. It was really fun. I don't think that we ever got it to be quite what he wanted. But we were in these hoods and these things. It was hard to be orgasmic when you were covered all up fun. I did a film just recently, a very low-budget film that was shot about a burning building.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, the special effects stuff that they were inventing and coming up with was just spectacular. I was so excited.
Nice. Yeah, William Fruitt directed that second episode you were on. He's like one of the most underrated like Canadian horror guys.
Yes, he was a great guy. I liked him a lot.
Yeah. So for the most part though, are you retired now?
Yes, I am, because I have multiple sclerosis. So it makes it kind of difficult to work, because I have recurring remitting MS, which means that you never know when it's going to visit. And so I can't, and I haven't my stamina. You know, acting, well, you're an actor, so you know it's like being an athlete. And if you aren't completely at the top of your game, you can't sustain dick, right?
Yeah.
So you can't get through your day. So that has kind of left me. And the last film I did, the Burning Building film, I forget what it's called now,
Mm-hmm.
was written for me by a producer who very much wanted me to be in it, and there was all the sitting down and yada 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 and blah blah blah, and it was still almost impossible for me to stand around and wait and this and that and this and that and this and that. It was very challenging. And, so I've had to stop, which is breaking my heart, because I always thought that I'd act happily on the rest of my life into oblivion. So it's disappointing. And I taught for a long time, and I loved teaching, and I can't do that either. I don't have the stamina for that either any longer.
Oh my God. I interviewed two actors with multiple sclerosis back in January, and they were not very pleasant to talk to. They were very bitter. They, I don't know, you know, I mean, I know that the volume of their multiple sclerosis was pretty bad, and I know it affects the brain, and it makes you very moody and stuff, right? And I'm sure, you know, they agreed to the interview when they were, you know, having their good side of the brain, but then they just got really increasingly bitter and belligerent during the interview. But I have to say, talking to you, I mean, it's been great, you know.
Well, I'm not of that school. I don't credit bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the loser's game.
Mm-hmm.
Being bitter. What are you bitter about? They're bitter about themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be bitter. I mean, it's you know, I just don't go along with it. It's anti-creative also.
Yes.
Because what are you going to do? Well, you can only have $5 million to make this film, but I want 10. Well, you can't have 10. You can only have 5. Well, fuck you then.
Yeah.
What's that? That's ridiculous. Why don't you take your fucking $5 million and make the best possible film you can? So that other thing is, I think, it's crap.
That movie you have coming out, that movie you just did, is it coming out soon?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what's happened to it. It didn't even seem to make it on the Netflix. It was called Backdraft, I think, to begin with, and then it had another name.
It probably.
Several years ago.
Oh, okay. It probably slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, and then, but a good movie that is around, and it is playing on something, that I did is called The Anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
You should look that up. That's really good. Valerie Bahagiar was the director of that. And it's got some terrific people in it, and it's really terrific. And she made it for next to nothing, and everybody gave their, no, I can't say that. I'll get in trouble. But anyway, she made it on a shoestring, and it's terrific. The Anniversary. It's really good.
Nice.
I think it's really good.
Nice.
Had zero money to make it.
Nice. What color are your toenails painted?
I don't paint my toenails.
Never have?
I might have for a couple of years of my life, but I'm an unnatural child of the 60s.
Oh, okay. The natural 60s hippie look.
Absolutely. I don't wear makeup. All that old people making themselves up thing is not my cup of tea. I don't wear makeup. I don't dye my hair. I don't paint my fingernails or do any of that stuff. I don't see why. Guys don't do it. Why should I do it?
Some guys do it.
Well, then that's their choice.
Mm-hmm. I've been painting my toenails since.
They don't see. I don't believe that in my world. Okay, I'm not talking about your generation because I'm not sure. My son getting his hair ripped off his back by my daughter was a bit of a shock. Anyway, in my world, men didn't wear makeup as I was growing up. And all the men I respect and look up to don't wear makeup. So, well, they wear it when you're on stage, but they don't wear it in their life. Except for John Neville, the English actor, who once did an interview with me towards the end of his life and arrived downstairs all made up. I thought that was really touching.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't want to be his old self, I guess.
Yeah, that's quite sad. I have some funny jokes to tell you to wrap this up.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Cinderella is about to go to the ball, and she's on her period, and the fairy godmother gives her magic tampons and says, "You have to be home by midnight, or else they'll turn into a pumpkin." And she says, "Okay, fairy godmother, I will." Well, 12:30 rolls around. Fairy godmother is pacing around the house, and Cinderella has not shown up. Then she shows up at 4 in the morning, and fairy godmother's like, "Where were you? You were supposed to be home by midnight." And Cinderella's like, "I'm so sorry, fairy godmother. I met this great guy and we danced all night. His name was Peter Peter." You got it?
I got it. Yeah, I got it. I got it.
That's like one of my
favorite. And these jokes you're telling to me, who's now 71 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, why?
Because you have such a great sense of humor, and since I already told...
I do, but it's not scatological.
Uh-huh. because I told you about that fantasy of Miss Shields, I thought it would be great to tell you a couple jokes.
Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe not.
What kind
I'm
of humor?
not offended. It's not that. It's that, first of all, I don't find jokes funny. I rarely laugh at them.
Mm-hmm.
If people tell them, I don't. And I don't know any. I don't remember them.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not a joke person.
Well, what kind of humor do you... You like British humor?
Yes, I would say I like wit.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's witty, sharp, that's like, whoa, that's like really funny. So yes, the Brits are quite good with wit. And there are some, I think Seinfeld's witty.
Yes.
I think there's some witty comics in the United States. I like wit. That's what I like. What kind of stand-up comedian are you?
I'm a scatological, dirty comedian.
I see.
I do have witty stuff in my act, though.
Scatological and dirty. Does it work for you?
It does. I mean, it's not for everybody, but it's what I do. I know my strength and what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, there is a place for everything in this world. Isn't that the wonderful thing about it?
Yes, it is.
That's what I think. I think it's wonderful that we live in a world where all things are possible. However, I wish it wasn't quite so out of control, and that such terrible damage was being done. Such terrible damage in Brazil now.
Mm-hmm.
Bad. It's not just in one place. That's the important thing. I mean, it must be, some huge worldwide thing that's going on, because it's not just in one country. It's not like you just point to one guy and say, well, he's just awful or she's just awful. It's all over the world that this is happening. So it's some sort of shift.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe democracy is done. That's an interesting part of it. Certainly capitalism hasn't worked, has it? So, because the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, so that isn't working.
Yep, unfortunately. Well, Teddy, I tell you, this was such a great honor. I would love to have you back on again after the holidays to do one of my conversational episodes I do.
Sure, well, just keep in touch with me.
Yes, this was just so awesome. I mean, you exceeded my expectations. You're an awesome person. You're so brave and strong for what you're going through. And I hope you have Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Wink, wink.
And the same to you. May the new year bring us some hope for the planet. Take care of yourself, and I look forward to the next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Tedde Moore. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Teddy. Oh my God, you were just absolutely hilarious and just very insightful and full of wisdom. And I'm so glad that we got to talk, and I look forward to talking to you again. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac